Screenshots are all over the internet right now of her exchanging gifts and inappropriate text messages with a 15-year-old. Candace Owens is losing her shit, and her own employees are getting fired for asking questions.
No agenda, no team to defend, no brand image to protect. Just one person staring at a pile of documented facts and reacting to what's right in front of him. That person, in this chapter of the story, is reportedly Joe Rogan. And according to people who were either present or close to the situation, when Rogan looked over what Candace Owens had put together, the screenshots, the timelines, the Epstein file links, the Romanian orphanage work, the Belfast recruitment announcement, and the strange wave of silence surrounding it all, his reaction wasn't political at all. It wasn't about ideology or party lines. The reaction was raw, immediate, and emotional. Sources say he looked at the material and said, "This woman is connected to every demon in the industry. She's crazy. Good job, Candace." That response stands out. Not because Rogan is some final judge of truth, but because someone with his level of reach and a reputation for thinking independently looked at the evidence and responded with real alarm. No political loyalty, no media battle to win, just a gut reaction to what was in front of him. And that moment signals something bigger. It suggests that what Candace assembled might cross a line far beyond the usual conservative versus liberal shouting matches. This doesn't look like a routine media feud or some petty fight over influence. It's not about who controls the TPUSA brand or who claims credit for Charlie Kirk's legacy. When everything is laid out side by side, every screenshot, every timeline, every connection, the story starts to feel a lot larger. Follow the thread carefully, and it stretches across years. It begins with posts from a teenage girl back in 2013 and eventually leads all the way to Epstein DOJ documents and a controversial recruitment trip to Belfast. When people step back and look at the entire timeline together, one uncomfortable question keeps popping up. A question that many people still haven't fully connected yet. So let's rewind and walk through it from the very beginning, in the exact order it happened. The year is 2013. Erika Kirk has just finished her time as Miss Arizona. At 25 years old, she is polished, well-connected, and steadily building her reputation inside conservative media and political circles. She already has a public platform, a following, and growing influence among people moving through that world. Then on the evening of September 15th, something happens that later becomes a key detail. Publicly archived social media posts show that Erika crosses paths with a teenager named Jillian Falcon, who was 15 at the time. At first glance, the interaction might appear ordinary to some observers.
Exchange is actually in reference to Erika then having sent this 15-year-old to have photos taken. Insane. She sent this 15-year-old to have photos taken. She's helping her because she's just so beautiful.
Jillian is simply a young fan who seems impressed by an older public figure with a glamorous image and a visible presence online. Teenagers admiring adults they find impressive or inspiring happens all the time. That part is normal human behavior. A young person sees someone older with confidence, success, or a public image and thinks, wow, that's someone I look up to. By itself, that raises zero alarms. That's not where the real story begins. The real question is what happens next. What happens when the adult in that situation, the 25-year-old with the public title, the platform, and the influence, chooses to step into that attention instead of keeping a clear and appropriate boundary? Because when a minor directs admiration toward an adult, the responsibility is completely on the adult to handle it the right way. There are only a few responsible options. An adult can ignore the attention. They can keep their distance. Or if there is a genuine goal of mentorship, it should happen through proper channels with transparency and awareness from guardians. Those are the standards any responsible adult is expected to follow. What should never happen is the adult stepping deeper into that admiration, encouraging it, and shifting the interaction into private conversations where there is no public visibility. That kind of move raises serious questions, especially when influence and age differences are involved. And according to screenshots that later circulated widely, reviewed and discussed by many online observers and highlighted in Candace Owens' breakdown, that shift is what people claim took place. The interaction between Erika and Jillian allegedly did not stay out in the open on public Twitter. Instead, the timeline suggests Erika's account went private, while Jillian's account remained public. And what Jillian continued posting out in the open began revealing hints of a much more personal dynamic unfolding behind the scenes, even for people who could not see the direct messages themselves. When a young person is flooded with intense praise and attention from an older figure, experts often describe that pattern with a specific term: love bombing. It refers to a situation where someone pours on compliments, validation, and constant positive attention to build emotional closeness very quickly. The focus isn't simple kindness. It can create a strong sense of dependence, where the young person begins to rely on that person for approval and encouragement.
The American people deserve to have every Epstein file released with no redaction whatsoever, period.
The more that connection grows, the more influence the adult figure can potentially gain. That's why observers studying these types of interactions often look closely at how quickly the attention escalates and how personal the language becomes. Then another moment in the timeline appears. Jillian reportedly posted that Erika sent her a Valentine's-themed image with a message that read, "This Valentine's Day, I'm going to touch your butt." Another alleged message that circulated online included the line, "I want to be inside your lady garden." Those messages quickly became some of the most controversial parts of the entire discussion. People reviewing the screenshots argue that statements like that are difficult to frame as appropriate in any situation involving an adult and a 15-year-old. The wording is explicit, and critics say the context makes the exchange deeply troubling. And the timeline doesn't stop there. According to what Jillian shared publicly at the time, Erika allegedly sent her a birthday gift through the mail. That detail suggests the older public figure had access to Jillian's home mailing address. At that point, the interaction had reportedly moved through several stages, starting with public social media, shifting into private messages, and then reaching the real world through a package delivered to a teenager's home. Each step raised more questions for people following the story. But then another detail surfaced later that reportedly shocked many observers even more. And this is the point in the timeline where many observers say the situation takes a much darker turn. Up until now, the discussion has focused on the alleged messages, the personal compliments, the Valentine's content, and even advice about appearance. Things like reminders to stay hydrated or avoid salty foods so someone would not look bloated. At first, some people assumed those kinds of comments meant there was some normal event coming up. Maybe a public appearance, a photo shoot with supervision, or some kind of professional opportunity where multiple adults would be involved. But according to accounts that later surfaced, that was not what happened. Instead, it has been alleged that Erika helped arrange for the 15-year-old to attend a photo session with a male photographer who was reportedly a friend of hers. The teenager had only met Erika in person once before, yet the plan reportedly involved the young girl going to this photo shoot alone. Jillian later described what she remembered about that situation. She said the photographer made her uncomfortable and that the experience felt unsettling. She recalled that his name began with the letter R, and she described him as shorter and heavier. Most importantly, she said she went to that photo shoot by herself, without her mother, without a guardian, and without any trusted adult present. That detail immediately raised serious concerns among people reviewing the timeline. A 15-year-old traveling alone to meet an adult photographer she did not know, arranged through a 25-year-old public figure who had reportedly been communicating privately with her online. Critics point out another key issue. According to what has been shared publicly, there was no record of communication with Jillian's mother during this entire process. No direct contact, no coordination, and no parental involvement before the photo shoot was arranged. According to the timeline being discussed online, one detail keeps standing out to people reviewing the situation. through all the alleged private messages, the compliments, the birthday gift, the Valentine's image, the appearance advice, and even the reported photo shoot arrangement, there was reportedly no contact with Jillian's mother at any point, no text message, no phone call, no email, no attempt to introduce herself or explain what was happening. Nothing. That absence is not a small detail. In situations involving minors, parents, or guardians, exist as the primary line of protection. Their awareness and consent are not optional steps that adults can skip over. They are the boundary that separates normal, transparent interaction from something that raises serious concerns. When an adult communicates privately with a teenager while completely bypassing parental contact, many experts say that pattern immediately raises red flags. Transparency with guardians is usually the first thing responsible adults establish. And when Candace Owens reportedly began digging deeper into Jillian's circumstances at the time, another layer of the story began to emerge, one that many people following the case described as significant. At the time these interactions allegedly took place, Jillian was living in a trailer park community that had reportedly been identified locally as an area with elevated risks related to youth exploitation and trafficking activity. She also grew up without her father present in the household. That background painted the picture of a young person who may have been navigating a difficult environment, growing up in a challenging socioeconomic situation without the added stability of a two-parent household. Jillian herself later confirmed parts of this information publicly. According to reports, when Candace shared the details with her, Jillian acknowledged her living situation at the time, the neighborhood she lived in, and the fact that her father was not in the home. Those elements are not speculation from outside observers. They are details Jillian reportedly confirmed about her own life during that period. According to Candace Owens' account of the situation, another detail made the timeline even more unsettling for people examining the case. She has claimed that Erika reportedly knew many of the circumstances surrounding Jillian's life at the time. For example, Erika allegedly had Jillian's home address because a birthday gift was sent there. That address would have revealed the general area where Jillian lived. At the same time, Jillian's public social media reportedly made it clear that she was a minor, meaning her age was not hidden or unclear during these interactions. So when observers look back at the timeline, they point to several factors that were potentially visible at the same time: her young age, her living situation, and the environment she was growing up in. Critics say those details should have created caution and distance from any adult communicating privately with her. But according to the narrative being discussed online, the interaction allegedly continued without hesitation. None of those circumstances appear to have slowed or stopped the communication that was taking place. Some analysts who study risky behavioral patterns involving young people have said that vulnerable environments can sometimes make teenagers easier targets for influence or manipulation. As the screenshots connected to Jillian started spreading across social media, many people began looking beyond the messages themselves. They started examining Erika Kirk's broader professional history to understand the bigger picture. And what they found was a career path that repeatedly placed her in roles connected to youth-focused environments. Over the years, Erika reportedly worked with several organizations and programs that involved young people, including orphan support initiatives overseas, conservative campus outreach programs, and political recruitment networks aimed at students and young activists. There were also reports of involvement with nonprofit and charity efforts connected to youth programs in places like Romania, China, and Costa Rica. Some of these operations were described as partnerships, connected with international aid projects and organizations linked to the U.S. military. Across these roles, one common theme appeared again and again: environments where young people, sometimes in difficult or unstable circumstances, were present, often far from the protection of stable family oversight or strong institutional supervision. Now, this next point is extremely important, and it deserves to be stated clearly. Millions of people around the world work with young people in ways that are ethical, responsible, and genuinely life-changing. Teachers, youth mentors, charity workers, counselors, and volunteers dedicate their lives to helping young people grow, heal, and find opportunities. Youth work itself is not suspicious. In fact, the overwhelming majority of people in those roles are motivated by real compassion and service. That is the baseline reality. But investigators and journalists who study cases involving the exploitation of young people have repeatedly pointed out an uncomfortable pattern that sometimes appears in certain situations. Individuals who intend to take advantage of others may try to place themselves inside environments where access to vulnerable youth already exists. By presenting themselves as mentors, volunteers, or aid workers, they can gain trust and proximity. The same spaces designed to help young people can sometimes be misused by the wrong person if proper oversight is missing. That possibility is why strong safeguards and accountability systems are so important in youth-focused programs. And this is where some observers began raising questions when they looked more closely at Erika Kirk's background. People reviewing her career history started asking what qualifications supported the international roles she reportedly held. According to what critics have pointed out, there were no widely documented records showing formal education in social services, no clearly listed professional training in trauma support, and no publicly verified credentials in the types of specialized humanitarian work often required for international aid programs. Yet reports suggested she had been placed in positions that involved contact with trafficking survivors and vulnerable youth in multiple countries, including Romania, China, and Costa Rica. That led some people following the story to ask a major question: who approved or credentialed those roles in the first place? That leads to a major question people following the story have been asking: who exactly opened those doors? Who made the decision that someone with a background in beauty pageants, conservative media connections, and a charity organization reportedly started as a teenager was qualified to work directly with trafficking victims in multiple countries? Those questions don't appear to have clear public answers. And when people look at the larger timeline surrounding the controversy, the lack of transparency around those decisions has become one more gap that critics say deserves closer examination. After her time involved in overseas charity and youth-related programs, Erika eventually moved into a completely different field. She reportedly took a position at the Corcoran Group, a well-known luxury real estate firm based in New York City. On the surface, that shift raised some eyebrows. Moving from conservative media circles and international charity work into high-end Manhattan real estate is an unusual career pivot. But for people investigating connections in the broader story, the real estate firm itself became the focus of attention. That's because the Corcoran Group appears numerous times in documents connected to the Department of Justice's Epstein case files. Reports note that the company's name shows up repeatedly in those records, including references tied to property listings connected to Epstein. The firm was also involved in the posthumous sale of Epstein's Palm Beach mansion, one of the most widely discussed properties connected to the case. In addition, past coverage referenced real estate dealings involving figures linked to Epstein's broader network. During the period when Erika reportedly worked at Corcoran, the company was led by Pamela Liebman, whose name has also been noted in documents related to the Epstein case. For observers already examining the timeline closely, that overlap only added another layer of curiosity and speculation. And this is where the timeline starts pulling together threads that many people had previously looked at separately. When observers began laying the pieces side by side, the screenshots from 2013, the alleged messages, the photo shoot arrangement, the international charity work, and then the later job at a luxury real estate firm connected to high-profile networks. People following the story started asking a bigger question. Were these just random, disconnected chapters in one person's career? Or were they part of a pattern that deserved deeper scrutiny? Critics examining the situation argue that none of these details alone prove anything on their own. But when placed together in chronological order, they create a sequence that raises eyebrows. The early interactions with a teenager, the overseas roles involving vulnerable youth, then the transition into circles that intersect with powerful business and social networks in New York. For many watching the discussion unfold online, the timeline itself became the center of attention. Because once a story reaches that point, the focus shifts from individual moments to the larger system around them. Who provided oversight? Who approved certain roles? Who was responsible for making sure safeguards existed when young people were involved? Those questions are not accusations. They are the kinds of questions journalists and investigators typically ask whenever situations involving minors, nonprofits, or international programs surface. And as more people started looking into the background of organizations, travel programs, and political youth networks connected to the broader story, another realization began spreading across social media. The circles involved were not small. They included media personalities, nonprofit organizations, political youth movements, and international outreach programs that had been operating for years. Once those networks entered the conversation, the story suddenly looked less like a private controversy and more like a much larger web that many people had never examined closely before. As the story kept spreading online, more people began digging through old posts, archived pages, and public records. What started as a small discussion around a handful of screenshots suddenly turned into a massive crowd investigation. People were comparing timelines, checking dates, and trying to understand how all these different pieces fit together. And one thing quickly became clear: the internet never forgets. Archived tweets from years earlier started resurfacing. Old photos, event announcements, charity promotions, and conference appearances were all being pulled back into the spotlight. Every small detail people could find was suddenly being examined under a microscope. Some users focused on the political connections surrounding the story. Others looked at the nonprofit organizations and youth outreach programs that had been mentioned. A different group of researchers started mapping out professional networks, who worked with who, which organizations overlapped, and where certain careers crossed paths. And that's when another uncomfortable question started circulating across forums and social media threads. If all these groups, programs, and networks were connected in some way, who was responsible for oversight? Large organizations that work with young people are normally expected to have clear rules, background checks, supervision policies, and strong safeguards designed to protect minors. So people began asking whether those systems were actually in place during the time these events allegedly happened. Because when youth programs involve travel, mentorship, or private communication between adults and teenagers, accountability becomes critical. The deeper people looked, the more they realized something else about this story. It wasn't just about a few messages or one controversial moment. For many observers, the real issue was transparency. Who knew what, when they knew it, and whether anyone in positions of authority ever stepped in to ask hard questions. As more eyes landed on the timeline, another shift started happening online. The conversation moved away from just the screenshots and messages and toward something bigger. The reaction from the people and organizations connected to the story. Because in situations like this, silence can become part of the story too. Many observers expected quick responses. Normally, when accusations or controversial claims start spreading across the internet, public figures rush to address them. Statements get released, clarifications appear, lawyers step in, damage control begins almost immediately. But according to people tracking the situation, that immediate wave of responses didn't happen the way many expected. Instead, what stood out to viewers was how quiet some corners of the political and media world seemed to be. For critics watching closely, that silence raised new questions. Were people unaware of the situation? Were they still gathering information before speaking? Or were some figures choosing to stay out of the conversation entirely? No one outside those circles could say for certain, but the lack of public statements quickly became a talking point all by itself. Meanwhile, the online investigation kept growing. More creators, commentators, and independent researchers started reviewing the timeline that Candace Owens had presented. Some agreed with her concerns. Others urged caution and argued that every claim needed to be carefully verified before drawing conclusions. But one thing was undeniable. The story had crossed a threshold where it was no longer a niche internet discussion. It had entered the wider media conversation, pulling in political personalities, journalists, and millions of viewers trying to understand what actually happened and whether the full truth had been uncovered yet. And that brings the story to where things stand right now. What started as a few resurfaced screenshots from years ago has turned into a massive online debate involving media figures, political organizations, archived records, and questions about oversight. People across the internet have been digging through timelines, comparing statements, and trying to understand how all the pieces connect. But one thing is clear. Stories like this don't stay buried forever. When old posts, messages, and documents start resurfacing, they often force conversations that many people would rather avoid. Questions about accountability, transparency, and the responsibility adults have when interacting with young people suddenly move to the front of the discussion. And once those questions are out in the open, the public starts demanding answers. Right now, the full picture is still being debated. Some people believe the timeline raises serious concerns that deserve deeper investigation. Others argue that every claim should be carefully examined before drawing conclusions. But regardless of where people stand, the conversation itself is growing, and more eyes are paying attention every day. And that's why discussions like this matter. Because the more people examine the facts, compare information, and ask difficult questions, the harder it becomes for important details to disappear quietly. If you found this breakdown informative, make sure you hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and share this video so more people can see the full timeline for themselves. And I want to hear your thoughts too. Drop a comment below and let me know what you think about everything that's come out so far.